Hello, you're back with a single malt review. I'm Dave, this is Tim, and this is Whiskey.
And it is November. Oh dear, you know why they call it November, Dave? Don't give me the real reason. It's because when it's November you say no! Just to the universe generally, you say no.
Yeah.
No to the shops starting Christmas music early. No to the general time itself.
Where did 2024 go? I'm sure it was January yesterday. Last week at most. Anyway.
So never mind. The one thing we can say yes to is another lovely whiskey. And this one is something a wee bit special. It comes to us from Joe, who knows who they are. They are the latest member of the Whiskey Enablers Council. Always hard at work. And it is a whiskey that is quite close to my heart. This is Deanston. But weirder than that, as you'll see from these weird fellows collecting what seems to be some sort of proto watermelon in some sort of medieval manuscript here. It's from a bottler that we have never seen before because I don't think this has ever entered the country by normal means. This one was imported especially because I see a Master of Malt sticker on here, but this is by Chorlton. I think I said that right. Chorlton Whisky, which are in Manchester of all places is where they call home. And otherwise we're completely in the dark about that. So that's a whiskey first here, something from Chorlton Distillery. But otherwise, perfectly good.
Chorlton
Deanston.
Bottlers.
Well, Chorlton Bottlers, yes. And, one of my favourite distilleries. One of the most sort of low-key distilleries out there that still sort of makes itself available, I suppose. And this one is a flat-out bourbon cask, 52.6% ABV, uncoloured, unchill filtered, as you would expect. So I'm expecting pretty big stuff from this, and I can smell some orchardy fruits already.
This is a relatively empty bottle, but at that high strength, we'll hope we've not lost too much into
it will be just
vapors.
Fine, I think. Just fine.
Years. There is one of only 234 bottles, which is the size of the barrel.
About right for a bourbon barrel. Just about right for a bourbon barrel. And as you can see from the colour, I'd say that's probably a second. Probably not a third, but I'd say a second. So we'll anticipate some pretty spirit-driven stuff here, which I always like to see in my favourite distilleries because it really gives you a good grasp on the true spirit, the true spirit of the distillery in question.
Bit of trivia about bourbon casks gleaned from an old episode of the Boutique Whiskey podcast. To make an actual bourbon barrel, these very specific parts of the oak wood, and you get about 2 barrels from one mature oak tree.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd get much more than that.
Exactly, yeah. Now, considering bourbon requires a fresh barrel each time, I can only imagine the scale of the oak plantations that must be going on around the bourbon-producing regions in the USA.
Pretty big. I've heard they are big in a scale that you really have to sort of see to believe. But I mean, America is I guess almost, unless you're in somewhere like Russia or China, you don't really have an idea just how massive the United States is. It is a vast country, so they've probably got the room to put them there.
It does take 50 years for an oak tree to mature to an age where it can reproduce. But then, once these bourbon barrels have done their thing and produced bourbon and go into the wider market, so they can be reused, refilled. And Scotch whisky, for instance, you'll get about 50 years of life out of a pre-loved bourbon barrel. So,
and thank goodness they do. I don't know where would we be putting all the whisky anyway. We'd be aging it in a shoe if not for American white oak. So
single
hats
loafer
off to them.
Edition.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, some lovely Deanston here, which I've espoused the qualities of before because in addition to it being an absolutely spanking whiskey, they just don't care. They're out there to make whiskey, and if they sell it, then that's all good. If you enjoy it, that's all good. You're never going to have any PR, you're never going to have any hoity-toity. It's like the anti-Macallan, not to say Macallan is bad whiskey, but you are going to hear about how good it is. Deanston, I don't even know if there is a visitors centre, but if there is, I imagine it.
I believe so. Yeah,
I imagine it sort of a man in a chair, probably smoking, with a little box of money beside him. And if you want some whiskey, you can have some. He will give you a bottle and wave you on your way and resume smoking on his chair.
I think it's a pretty slick operation to have there. They operate out of what was once a converted 18th century cotton mill. That's changed hands and changed purposes a few times, and have some fairly big additions too. About 3 million litres per year output of whiskey. So
big one. I don't know where it all goes. It must be going to blends because they do release a 12-year-old and a few other additions around it. There's an 18 which I haven't tried and really want to, but one day maybe. And they do some no age statements ones, but they're not my favourite. But never mind. We're talking about this one today, so let's dig on.
That is a crisp and lightly fruity Oh, a bit of Granny Smith apple. There's a little bit acidic fruit there.
Was this not Highland, I'd say that's classic Speyside. And I'm going to say it anyway, that's classic Speyside, which is sort of one of the things that Deanston really does. For me, they're classic Speyside with a bit more maltiness heaved on top.
Yeah.
But yes, this is beautifully crisp, isn't it? That's... Yeah, white fruits, there is a lot of apple in there. It's very, very tangy. You get that green apple. Granny Smith, I think you already said, yeah, that green apple skin coming through. And there's a wee bit of coconut in there as well. There's a wee bit of slightly fudgy coconut sort of underneath. And it's really pretty gentle at full strength. Yeah, I can get as far in on the schnoz as I can, and that will do me no harm whatsoever. That's promising for tasting at cask strength.
Oh, some good oils in there too. That is a greasy inside of a glass below a high tide line. Oh, that is fresh and crisp again. The Granny Smith apple is continuing about its way.
Yeah, we're coming in with a whole lot of almond now, which is another classic one for Speyside.
Yep. Bit of pastry.
Really, yeah.
Fruit pie.
Lovely fruit pie is a good one. Yeah, like a nice glazed, like a hotel breakfast Danish. Is what I'm getting through here.
They give Christmas mince tarts as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's delicious. And yeah, beautifully spirit driven, but lots and lots of flavour to come along.
Yeah.
With it. That is really surprisingly approachable. Maybe it's sort of got a bit of gentility from being a lower bottle for some time, but that is remarkably approachable for something that is nigh on 60% ABV. I feel we've stuck our noses in glasses, I don't know, a few percent below this and been they've exploded up out of the thing and repelled us. This one, not so much.
Oh, it's under 53%, so it's not too extreme.
Put a wee bit of water in, but I don't think it needs much at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very cautious here. Comparing this to the 12-year-old standard expression, this is much, much lighter. There's much less oak in here, and this is, I think, that much more fruit-driven. In fact, watermelon, despite the label, is just about the only fruit I can't taste in here. It's very, very, very fruity whiskey. It's amazing. To draw an analogue, this is like probably... This is a little bit Glenlivet adjacent, bourbon matured Glenlivet. And it's actually quite a lot like Arran as well in their bourbon matured expressions, because I still think Arran do the biggest magic trick ever producing. They've opened up a portal somewhere in the warehouse to Speyside and are secretly making their whiskey there and just manifesting it on the island. But it sort of falls between those two for me.
Now, on the tongue, after any water, it's night and day. This has turned into a fizzy, vibrant lemon spectacle.
It is a wee bit, isn't it? That's really supercharged the fruit. Actually, I said I didn't want too much water. It wanted exactly that much water. That's really turned the notch up.
If anything, this is actually a little sharper on the tongue. It's like I've added alcohol instead of taking it away.
I think it's brought out some acidity to it, which is interesting.
Which it had in abundance already with that green apple business.
It's killed off the pastry a little bit. So depending on the sort of, if you wanted the oiliness, then I think it's probably without water is better. Yeah. But in terms of just some really striking fruitiness, I'm not sure I would have been able to guess this. Well, I sit here like I can just guess Deanston out of the blue. I cannot, as will probably become broadly apparent next month when we get into our Christmas guesses. But this one, if I'd had a glass of representative Deanston from the 12-year-old and this one, I might have gotten this one wrong. I might have thought, oh no, that's something much lighter. That's something from somebody else, like an Arran or a Glenlivet. But
it's very, very indulgent dessert of a whiskey. It starts off as your very rich, fruity apple pie, and then after you add water, you get a chaser of limoncello. Yeah, sharp and sweet.
But it's a light dessert.
Yeah,
it's not. There's no stodge in this whiskey whatsoever. There's no flab. There's no fat. It's very light and crisp and really quite delicious. Yeah. I'm thinking scores-wise for this one. This one is, and I say this not having tasted a huge number of very spirit-driven whiskies, this really is one of the best, because we've encountered spirit-driven whiskies before and it's always landed in the interesting category, not the this is just flat-out excellent whiskey category. I think we've had Glenord's, we've had Linkwoods, we've had whiskies that you can basically see all the way through, third fill bourbon, no colour there to speak of, and they've been very, very, very naked whiskies, and they've sort of like, this is fascinating. This is not necessarily great. This is both fascinating and great for me. I really like this one quite a bit. That's 88 from me.
I'm going a little higher at 90. It's not because it's like a wildly eccentric novelty whiskey, which often gets a high score from me. This is a classic whiskey. It hits all the traditional tasting points, but it just does them in a spectacular fashion. It is such a balanced masterpiece of being spirit driven and well matured and just having a good background flavours of its own.
Yeah, it's really lovely stuff. Conventionally excellent, I guess, in summary.
Yes.
Very, very nice stuff. And thank you very much for the end of the bottle there. It's a it's a much easier way of scraping for whiskies ourselves. And fascinating to see a bottler that we would otherwise only be able to gaze at through the internet, which is remotely as interesting.
If you can find a bottle at a price that you're happy to pay, then absolutely get it. And if you can't, then I hope you've got some enjoyment out of our vicarious tasting.
The problem once again is going to be that this one will be long gone. So if you see one turn up at a menu, then that's probably the way to go. I'd say this is sadly sold through long ago, but never mind. We still get to enjoy it today and yourselves vicariously through us. So slange it. And buckle in. We will be scheming away for our December content, which is going to be bigger and ideally better than ever. But no promises just yet. The speaking of whiskey enablers, the panel, the council are hard at work. So hats off to them for their continuing efforts. And we will just have to once again try and do it justice for another year. But anyway, we will have a few more bits and pieces between then and now. And then no November, no Why-vember will continue into damn it December, and then it's all go from there on, and you just have to ride the bomb down at that stage. Oh, no regrets. Right, Slanger, we'll catch you then.